government orders tomorrow, November 15th, 2016.
I'd like your answer.
Therefore, the vote is deferred until the end of government orders tomorrow. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés.
Statements by members. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, Leonard Cohen's deep voice will no longer be heard. Montreal, Quebec and the whole world are in mourning. Cohen, the Montrealer, Cohen, the Quebecer, was the Cohen of the world. Leonard Cohen's deep voice will be heard no more, but his words, Mr. Speaker, his words will continue to illuminate our nights and be beside us as we experience our joys and our griefs. Just listen to Sisters of Mercy, So Long Marianne, Waiting for a Miracle, Famous Blue Raincoat, Hallelujah, and so many others, and you're transported to a deeper, sweeter, and more fundamental world. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I would like to offer my condolences to the family, to his loved ones, and to all those who loved him. We will all miss this man who, in his own way, tried to remain free.
The Honourable Member for Surrey Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize the amazing contributions of Surrey youth to the broader community. Over the past few months, I have had the privilege to meet many of these young people, whether they are involved with the organizations like Kids Play under the leadership of Cal Desange, Kiran Toor, and Arjun Pullar, or they are volunteering locally through their elementary and high schools, or are applying to different youth councils, pushing for issues and advancing social causes. They are making an impact. I want to commend the youth of Surrey and encourage them to continue to make the community a better place for all. Their efforts through the leadership of individuals such as Cal, Arjun, and Kiran are recognized and very much appreciated by the residents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillé, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, today I'm proud to highlight the work of the organising committee and volunteers involved in the 13th Christmas at Home in Rivière-du-Loup event. At the start of each November, Rivière-du-Loup becomes the world capital of Christmas. It has many Christmas markets with over 60 stalls in the heart of the city, a long parade of themed floats and a firework display, as well as many shows. The city also boasts, or the area I should say, also boasts many markets to encourage people to source locally. They've been held in Saint-Philippe-de-Néry, Sainte-Hélène, and Saint-Apolline-de-Patten. In November, they'll be in Saint-Denis-de-la-Bouteillerie, then La Pocatière, and then December in Kamouraska. Mr. Speaker, the riding of Montmagny-Lillé, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup is the place to celebrate the spirit of the holiday season. Congratulations to all the volunteers involved.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the end of World War II, West Vancouver approached the community to say, what are your ideas for commemorating and creating a war memorial? Groups formed, and the winning submission read, quote, "A public library exemplifies the spirit and meaning of free democratic institutions. Its shelves are open to writers of all opinions. It is free from political influence. Its services are available to all classes of society and all economic, racial, and religious groups. One of the first acts of the totalitarian states was to purge the libraries of all volumes expressing enlightened democratic principles. As a memorial to our fallen, we submit that a public library is uniquely suitable. On November 11, 1950, the doors of the West Vancouver Memorial Library opened, a living monument and everlasting commemoration to veterans. On behalf of librarians, library boards, friends of the library, and citizens across the country, we will remember them.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, today marks World Diabetes Day. November the 14th is a significant date. It marks Frederick Banting's birthday, the Canadian who co-discovered insulin and changed the world for so many. In my riding of North Island, Powell River, and across Canada, some people with diabetes are forced to make hard decisions about their illness based on financial considerations. Financial support can be the critical factor that may prevent the development of potentially disabling complications. Some of my constituents and their children with type 1 diabetes may be eligible for the disability tax credit, and this can make a big difference. Sadly, there are still some discrepancies on how they are applied across Canada, and this needs to be fixed. I am proud to have organized disability tax credit workshops in my riding. It is so rewarding to see constituents get meaningful results. I look forward to offering these workshops once again in the new year. Thank you.
Honourable member for Oakville.
Mr. Speaker, a wonderful remembrance event took place in my riding of Oakville last week, the 15th Annual Veterans Appreciation Luncheon. The luncheon was started by Kristen Courtney, whose father fought in the Normandy invasion and was on Juno Beach on D-Day. It began with 8 local veterans. 15 years later, this luncheon, still organized by Kristen, seated 720 people and included veterans from 42 long-term care centres from as far away as Toronto and Fort Erie. Kristen says this is a labour of love. It is an honour to personally thank our veterans, to bring them together and allow them to have the comradeship in arms they may not have the rest of the year. This year I was honoured to attend as Member of Parliament, lay a wreath and to bring greetings from the Minister of Veteran Affairs. Working with Kristen, I will be sponsoring an e-petition, veteran with a capital V, so our veterans can be addressed appropriately. Thank you, Kristen, for your remarkable labour of love to our veterans.
The honourable member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, today marks World Diabetes Day, a global event created to raise awareness of the diabetes epidemic, which now affects over 415 million adults and their families around the world. 11 million Canadians live with diabetes or prediabetes, and another Canadian is diagnosed every 3 minutes. World Diabetes Day became an official United Nations World Health Day as governments recognize that diabetes, a non-infectious disease, poses a serious threat to world health. World Diabetes Day is celebrated every year on November 14th. The day was chosen because it marks the birthday of Canadian Sir Frederick Banting, along with Charles Best, is credited with the discovery of insulin in 1921. This day is also symbolized by a blue circle, the global circle of diabetes, and signifies the unity of the global diabetes community. I ask all Canadians to join me in the fight against diabetes and make every effort to foster a healthy Canada. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Mr. Speaker, the culinary industry is an important growing sector in Nova Scotia and in my riding of South Shore St. Margaret's. Ironworks Distillery in Lunenburg won the award for Culinary Ambassador of the Year at the Taste of Nova Scotia Awards. This recognition not only tips its hats to its innovative and high-quality products, but also to helping businesses work in commitment to helping other Nova Scotian businesses succeed. Another Lunenburger, Amy Funk, won Server of the Year for her work at Lincoln Street Food. Hell Bay Brewing Company in Liverpool and Boxing Rock Brewing Company in Shelburne were both winners this month at the Atlantic Beer Awards. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to invite any of my colleagues in the House to South Shore St. Margaret's anytime to indulge in the great food and drink we have to offer. Please join me in congratulating these businesses and all small businesses who work hard to show the world that Nova Scotia and Canada has to offer. Thank you.
The honourable member for York Simcoe.
Last week, Canada and the world lost renowned poet, songwriter, and artist Leonard Cohen. He began his music career to expand the audience for his poetry and evoked a broad range of emotions from his audience. His arrival as an artist happened together with Canada's centennial. Although he had already headed south in search of success elusive here, we think of him as part of the vibrant cultural scene in Montreal at that time, as all eyes were on Expo 67. Cohen became part of the emotional embrace that captured what Canada was about: proud, dynamic, a history of strength through diverse backgrounds, and a country taking its place as a global leader in so many ways. Leonard Cohen possessed a rare ability to draw inspiration from the flaws of humanity. The very unconventional singing voice he possessed represented the underdog and gave a sense that his words spoke to the unique experience and extraordinary potential of the ordinary person. Let's not talk of love or chains and things we can't untie. Your eyes are soft with sorrow. Hey, that's no way to say goodbye.
Honourable member for Yukon.
You all know that early last week there was a momentous election with a changing of the guard. I'm sure you'll all join me in heartfelt congratulations to the new Premier-elect of the Yukon. Sandy Silver, and his colleagues in the new majority Liberal government. This is remarkable, and at the last sitting of the Yukon Legislature, Premier Silver held the only Liberal seat. I believe this was partly a result of his remarkable team of knowledgeable candidates, his ongoing campaign for respect and decorum in the Legislature, and his commitment to building a strong economy while protecting our environment. The opposition parties have elected experienced members of the Legislature, which bodes well for a very productive session given Premier Silver's commitment to taking good ideas from all parties. Congratulations to all who put their names forward, win or lose, to improve our Yukon community. It is a very immense sacrifice for which all of us Yukoners are truly grateful.
A member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, as a proud city planner of nearly 25 years, I'm delighted to report to this House that on November 8th, the Globe celebrated World Planning Day. Did you know that city planners devote themselves to building sustainable, livable, healthy, and resilient communities where people live, work, and play? No wonder then that city planning earned this #2 slot in Canadian Business Magazine's Best 100 Jobs in Canada list in 2016. And with shifting global populations, the specter of climate change and sea level rise, and alarming trends in public health and equitable housing, the work of planners has never been more important. Here in Canada, groups like the Council for Canadian Urbanism and the Canadian Institute of Planners are leading this charge every day. So, Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate my fellow city planners across the nation for their invaluable contributions to our Canadian communities. They are building a better Canada every day.
The Honourable Member for Louis Hébert. Mr. Speaker, on 22nd of August 2015, one of my oldest friends and former roommate died on the corner of Saint-Denis and Jean Talon in Montreal. His name was Bernard Carignan. He was 27. He was a man of integrity and tolerance. He was a brother, he was a friend, and he was a hero. His life was brought to an abrupt end when a car door opened negligently as he was riding his bicycle, but his death could have been prevented with a very simple technique. It's called the Dutch reach. Rather than opening the door with your left hand, you use your right hand, and that forces you to look in the mirror and to see if there's a cyclist coming up behind you.
Here in Canada, 7,500 cyclists are seriously injured or killed in this country. And some of these accidents are preventable through a simple technique called the Dutch reach. Easy. Instead of opening the door to your vehicle with your left hand, you use your right hand, which forces you to look in the mirror to see if a cyclist is coming your way. So I encourage all Canadians and all members to practice all winter long so that when the summer comes in this land, from coast to coast to coast, we do the Dutch reach.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all Canadians, I extend our deepest condolences to the people of New Zealand who over the weekend were victimized by yet another devastating earthquake. This earthquake registered a 7.8 on the Richter scale and has triggered landslides and destroyed roads. At least 2 people were killed. Strong aftershocks continue to shake the country, rattling nerves and leaving people in a state of fear. Canada and New Zealand have a historic relationship based on mutual respect and shared values. New Zealand is an important, like-minded partner for Canada on any number of issues, particularly with respect to trade, security, and defence. For this and many other reasons, Canada must and should extend any and all assistance to New Zealand in the aftermath of this disaster. I know I speak for all parliamentarians when I say we wish a speedy recovery to those injured by this earthquake and condolences to the families of those who were lost. I want to thank the first responders for their tireless efforts to help those in need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, this Saturday I was at the Dorsey and Met Synagogue in my riding. At the end of the service, the rabbi pulled out his guitar and we all sang Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. The song brought tears to my eyes because I knew the same scene was being repeated in churches and in synagogues and in gatherings across Canada and across the world. Because his music unites us all. Avec plus de 14 albums de studio.
With over 14 studio albums made during his 50-year musical career, it's his poetry and his unique voice that we will remember. He was a talented author and published many books of poetry as well as novels.
Although he became a citizen of the world in many places, he was always a very proud Canadian and a quintessential Montrealer. I know all members of this House will join me in offering their sincere sympathies to the family and friends of Leonard Cohen.
The honourable member for Elmwood, Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to address an issue that may affect other rail communities like mine. Transcona's new Plessis underpass opened on October 31st, 2015, making the daily commute easier for many people. But for residents of Mission Gardens, the new underpass has had significant unforeseen costs. CN has used the underpass as a means to extend the operational area of its Transcona yards and is now building and staging trains behind the homes in Mission Gardens. Some residents have been in the area for 40 years and are for the first time experiencing diesel fumes in their living room, sleep deprivation from the noise, and damage to their homes from train vibrations. Community residents are facing the prospect of having to fight for their homes against experienced, well-resourced CN lawyers. When there's a big power imbalance between two groups with competing interests, government should step in to make it fair. I urge the government to require that CN restrict the reach of its yards to the east side of Plessis Road instead of forcing the residents of Mission Gardens to play David to CN's Goliath.
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Today in 1469, with the advent of Guru Nanak, the radiance of knowledge pierced through this world. Nanak, the founder of Sikh way of life, decreed that truth is good. However, greater still is truthful living. In the 15th century, he proclaimed, "Why disrespect women, from whom even the kings are born, thereby claiming equal rights for women." With knowledge from the divine, he guided the world to accept diversity and look beyond the differences. He opposed the caste system and the other divisions among society. He started the system of langar, a free kitchen based entirely on contributions that serve over 1 million free meals daily in India alone. Guru Nanak's teachings remains available to the world through the eternal holy book, Shri Guru Granth Sahib. I offer greetings to all Canadians on this most auspicious occasion. Thank you.
Honourable member for Long Range Mountains.
Chers collègues, cette semaine est la semaine.
Dear colleagues, this week is the International Week of Entrepreneurship. We all know that entrepreneurs and small businesses are the cornerstone of our economy and contribute to creating jobs for Canadians from coast to coast.
Fostering a confident nation of innovators to support the growth of small business in Canada. I'm very proud to stand today to recognize the work of Futurepreneur Canada. Futurepreneur Canada is a not-for-profit that encourages entrepreneurship by providing young Canadians with financing and mentorship. They'll be hosting some 300 activities taking place across the country, from coast to coast to coast. They'll be connecting entrepreneurs with potential collaborators, mentors, and investors. Mr. Speaker, I'm personally looking forward to attending a few Global Entrepreneurship Week activities here in Ottawa, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's decision to impose a carbon tax that will drive up the cost of home heating, of gas at the pump, and even groceries was always a bad idea, but now it's even worse. The Americans have now taken a carbon tax off the table, which will give the U.S. a significant competitive advantage over Canadian businesses doing global work. Why doesn't the Prime Minister understand that if he moves forward with his carbon tax, he's setting us up for failure and Canadian jobs will be lost?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, we're taking actions that Canadians demand with respect to a transition to a low-carbon economy that will stimulate growth, provide access to new markets, and create jobs. With respect to what the member said in terms of the United States policy, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said Canada has no closer friend, partner, and ally than the United States, and we look forward to working with the new administration on global energy challenges and the environment.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the U.S. is our greatest ally and our largest customer, but they're also our biggest competitor. And now that the Americans are not moving ahead with the carbon tax, the Prime Minister's carbon tax has become a liability for Canadian businesses. The Prime Minister must accept that this is a new economic reality in North America. Will the Prime Minister back down from his carbon tax, or is he comfortable losing Canadian jobs to the United States?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, our government is proud to have ratified the Paris Accord. We're proud that our Minister of Environment and Climate Change is at COP22 in Morocco now. We also recognize, Mr. Speaker, that putting a price on pollution is good for the Canadian economy. It will create jobs here in Canada. It's what Canadians expect us to do. And we look forward to working with the provinces and international partners to ensure that we have the most robust carbon pricing system in place.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, before getting elected, the Prime Minister said he supported the Keystone XL pipeline, and now the new President-elect has stated his support for the Keystone pipeline as well. Can the Prime Minister assure Canadians, particularly those who could actually get a job if this project goes ahead, that he's moving as fast as possible to move Keystone pipeline ahead?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's relationship with the United States, as I said a moment ago, is one of the most important bilateral relationships in the world. We'll continue to work with all of our continental partners to build a North American energy partnership for generations to come. Specific to the project mentioned by the member, it's the company that will decide whether or not to reapply for a U.S. presidential permit. The Canadian portion of the pipeline, as she knows, was approved in 2010, and we look forward to working, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, but Mr. Speaker, since forming government, the Prime Minister has ignored unemployed energy workers, but now this opportunity has presented itself. If he champions the Keystone XL pipeline, which he said before the election that he supported, it could create thousands of jobs. Will the Prime Minister move quickly to lend his public support to this pipeline, or will he continue to leave these unemployed energy workers wondering about their jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard.
Mr. Speaker, our government looks forward to working with the incoming administration on energy and many other related matters. We believe in developing a system that has the confidence of Canadians to bring resources to market in a sustainable way. The United States has its own process by which it determines whether energy projects serve their national interest. The proponent, in this case the company, will work with the incoming administration, and we look forward, Mr. Speaker, to working with that administration as well.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, NAFTA is our most important trade arrangement. It's worth thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in investment for Canada. We know that the new President-elect has concerns with NAFTA, but they're about Mexico, not Canada. But before he was even asked, our Prime Minister threw NAFTA back on the negotiating table and put our most important trade agreement at risk. Canada is now in a weaker position, and all this has done is create more uncertainty. Mr. Speaker, why is the Prime Minister jumping the gun to open up NAFTA with the Americans?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we look forward to working very closely with the President-elect, his administration, and with the United States Congress in the years ahead, including on issues like investment, international peace, security, and trade. A trading relationship with the United States is very important, Mr. Speaker, and we'll have the interests of Canadians in mind all the way through.
The member for Vancouver East.
Nearly 4 decades ago, Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau introduced reforms to the Canada Pension Plan to ensure women are not penalized for time taken out of the workforce to raise kids. But after styling himself as a feminist, this Prime Minister chose not to include this important gender equality provision in their new CPP enhancement bill. Will the government commit to fixing this oversight to ensure that women are not penalized when it comes to new CPP benefits?
The Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I also thank my colleagues for making it possible to say how proud we are in this House to be able to participate in this very important debate, a historic agreement on enhancing the CPP, which is going to take thousands of Canadians out of poverty in the short term, and hundreds of thousands of seniors out of income vulnerability in the longer term. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, as we all do, I think, to listening to the views of all members of this House.
The honourable member for St. Hyacinthe Bagot. Mr. Speaker, I can't believe the minister won't commit to solving this problem. Women get 13% less in CPP benefits on average. The situation is unacceptable and will only get worse if the bill isn't amended. In addition to costing women hundreds of dollars every year, this reinforces inequality of the sexes. Will this government undertake to work with us to improve retirement security for all Canadian women? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I'd like to thank my colleague for giving me the opportunity to say how proud we are here. I think we all agree that we're taking part in a historic process to improve the CPP, and I'm taking part in the debate myself, and I'm glad to see that the opposition and members opposite have other points of view to further improve the CPP.
Mr. Speaker, after the Trade Minister ignored opposition to the TPP by both presidential candidates, U.S. officials have now confirmed the deal is dead. Yeah. Meanwhile, the Trade Minister has failed to get a deal on softwood lumber. The President-elect has also said he will renegotiate NAFTA. The minister's top priority must be to protect Canadian jobs. With things changing so quickly, will the minister stand up for Canadians and fight to remove investor-state provisions that have cost Canada billions?
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is a trading nation and we are a trading government. But when it comes to the TPP, our promise was to consult Canadians. It's what we are doing. Recently, the Parliamentary Secretary of Trade held consultations on the TPP in the Northwest Territories. The Trade Committees continues to hear from interested Canadians across the country. I'm proud of the work we are doing, listening to Canadians on this important issue with our Trade Minister.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, make no mistake, the U.S. election brings significant uncertainty. In my riding and all across the country, workers and families are concerned about the fact that there may be no softwood lumber deal with the U.S. We're talking job losses, we're talking plant closures. This government has not reached a deal, has no plan B, and isn't offering the industry any loan guarantees. With a new administration in the U.S. and even greater uncertainty, and with higher duties fast approaching, is the government going to take any concrete steps before it's too late, yes or no? The Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question, but in fact, the deal expired under the previous government, and as the Prime Minister said, we are anxious to work with the new administration in the U.S. Meanwhile, we're working with the current administration to reach a softwood lumber deal, and we will continue working on those negotiations with producers in the provinces and territories. We're doing good work. We're going to keep working hard to try to reach a deal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to remind the Minister of Foreign Affairs that it's already been 1 year that they've been in office and they've done nothing about softwood. Mr. Speaker, the issue of softwood requires leadership from this government. There's tens of thousands of jobs at stake, especially in regions, not in the big cities, in the regions. And we know how contemptuous this government is of the regions. When is this government going to show some leadership and negotiate a deal that will be beneficial to the entire industry? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable colleague for his question. We're working very, very hard at multiple levels to reach a softwood lumber deal. The Minister is in contact with her counterparts. We're working hard. We continue to consult. I myself was in the Gaspé area last week to listen, to hear the concerns of producers and workers in that industry. We're going to keep up the effort to reach a deal that's good for Canada.
Louis Saint Laurent.
Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. The other thing that Canadians are very concerned about, particularly in the regions, is dairy, because under NAFTA, or CETA, the producers are concerned that compensation is falling short of what was expected. And there was nothing in the throne speech or in the budget about farmers. I see a member opposite. He knows what I'm talking about because they've done nothing for farmers. When are they going to take responsibility and do some work for Canadian farmers? The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
And I think if my honourable colleague was listening last Thursday, we indicated what we were going to do for dairy farmers, just starting what we're going to do. We inherited a lot of problems from the previous government in the dairy industry, and we intend to fix it. But last Thursday, Mr. Speaker, we made a announcement of $350 million, $250 million to innovate the dairy industry itself, and $100 million to make sure the dairy processors are on the cutting edge. What we're going to make sure here, Mr. Speaker, this government is going to make sure that supply management in the dairy sector remains strong for many generations to come.
A member for Carleton.
President-elect Trump would love a carbon tax for Canada. Why wouldn't he? Higher energy costs in this country will mean more factories and jobs will move to his country. We've already lost 58,000 good blue-collar jobs in Canada since this Prime Minister came to office a year ago, mostly because of high electricity prices. Why are the Liberals making matters worse by taxing away good blue-collar jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has stated, Canada has no closer friend, partner or ally than the United States, and we look forward to working closely with President-elect Trump, his administration and the United States Congress over the coming years. On climate, Canada has ratified the Paris Agreement and is committed to its implementation. We will continue to move forward with the international community on climate change and clean growth, and with the provinces and territories to develop a pan-Canadian strategy.
For Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal carbon tax will create good-paying, blue-collar American jobs. U.S. competitors will have a huge advantage. Here at home, there are 58,000 fewer people employed in goods-producing sectors. These are miners, they are loggers, they are rig workers, they are factory workers. This new carbon tax will mean even more of them will lose their jobs to competitors south of the border. Why is this government so determined to send Canadian jobs south?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that putting a price on carbon pollution will improve our response to economic challenges, will create good middle-class jobs here in Canada going forward, and will demonstrate the kind of leadership that the entire world is looking for on climate action. We are taking real action on climate change because, as Canadians understand, a strong economy and environmental sustainability go hand in hand.
The Honourable Member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we know that President-elect Trump is not going to impose a carbon tax. Canadian farmers have led the way to responsible environmental stewardship, but this Liberal Prime Minister insists he's going to force a carbon tax on them anyway. Canada's agricultural sector is in danger of being put at a massive competitive disadvantage. The last thing farmers and rural Canadians need is a tax that increases the cost of everything and makes us uncompetitive. When will the Liberals stop their carbon taxation fixation?
Hear, hear.
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question. As he's well aware, our government is committed to creating a cleaner environment and an innovative economy. Under the carbon pricing commitment made by our government, provinces can decide how to establish a carbon pricing system. We are proud to be a government that recognizes an important driver of growth in the agricultural sector is science and research, and we continue to support science and research.
A member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the U.S. is Canada's most important export location. The Liberal carbon tax is nothing but a money-grabbing scheme that will shackle Canadian agriculture and the economy while doing nothing for the environment. The U.S. President-elect knows this. That's why he's not implementing a carbon tax in the United States. Why is the Prime Minister bringing in a carbon tax that will kill the Canadian farmer's ability to remain competitive?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
My honourable colleague is well aware with the actions of this government, the agricultural sector will remain competitive and more competitive. We are interested in agricultural research, clean technology, helping farmers better address climate change, improve their efficiencies, and become more competitive. And that's exactly what will happen with the investments from this government, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé. The Liberals keep breaking their election promises. Their compensation package for dairy farmers for losses due to CETA falls far short. Not only is it only for 5 years, it only covers half the losses farmers will suffer. What's more, farmers will have to pay for access to compensation. I can see why they're disappointed. Why all the consultations if the government doesn't listen to what farmers are asking for and what they need?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and I know of her concern. But the fact of the matter is we did consult and we did listen, and this is why this package is in place. I was very pleased to announce for this government a $350 million package. $250 million will make our dairy farmers more innovative. $100 million will make sure that our processing sector is on the cutting edge. We're going to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that supply management remains strong. We said we would, and we're putting our money where our mouth is.
For North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, today 8 cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister are appealing to some of the world's wealthiest investors. But these investors didn't amass trillions of dollars by giving money away for infrastructure projects. They will be looking for a big return on their investment. For Canadians, this means user fees and privatization of our public infrastructure. Why is this government pursuing a massive sell-off of our infrastructure to foreign investors? And why did the Liberals fail to mention this during the campaign?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we were elected on a commitment to create the largest infrastructure program in Canadian history, and that's what we're doing. We're working with the provinces, territories, municipalities, and private sector, and the Infrastructure Bank is one of the tools we'll be using to build more infrastructure. So there won't be less, there will be more.
For Chilliwack, Hope.
Mr. Speaker, when Barack Obama said no to the Keystone XL pipeline, a project which would help get Canadian energy workers back to work, the Prime Minister, who claimed he was for the project, did nothing to fight for it. He was happy to see it die. Well, it turns out it's not dead yet. President-elect Trump has promised to approve Keystone XL within 100 days of taking office. Will the Prime Minister get off the sidelines, get back in the game, and finally start fighting for this job-creating project?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's relationship with the United States always has been and always will be one of the country's most important ones. We will continue to work with our continental partners to build a North American energy partnership that will benefit all countries for years and generations to come. Specific to this project, the company will decide whether or not to reapply for a U.S. presidential permit, as the Canadian portion, as the member well knows, of the pipeline was approved in 2010. Our government looks forward to working with the incoming administration on this and other projects.
Member for Chilliwack, Hope.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister took everyone and their dog to Washington for a lavish party with Barack Obama, he forgot to invite the Natural Resource Minister to fight for Keystone XL. I guess there wasn't room in the delegation, what with all the Liberal bagmen and his family members going and filling all the spots. But now that President-elect Trump is promising to approve Keystone XL, will the Natural Resource Minister be our guest and head down to Washington to fight for Keystone and finally do something for out-of-work energy workers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government believes in developing resources sustainably through a process that carries the confidence of Canadians. The United States indeed has its own process by which they determine whether energy products serve their national interests. The proponent, or the company in this case, must work with the incoming administration to get their project approved. We look forward to working with the incoming administration on building a North American energy partnership that will benefit both countries for years to come. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week I had the opportunity to meet with dozens of my constituents who have been impacted by the economic downturn in Alberta. Again and again, two issues came up. They are very worried about a federally imposed carbon tax, and we need pipelines built to get Albertans back to work. The U.S. President-elect has said he will not support a carbon tax, but he will support construction of new pipelines. can the Liberals commit to keeping Canada competitive, to keeping Albertans working, and ensure that Keystone XL is approved?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, one of our core responsibilities as government is to help to get our natural resources to market sustainably. The only way to do that is restore trust in the way we evaluate our major resource projects. During the 2015 election, we committed to modernizing the National Energy Board, and Mr. Speaker, we have just appointed a panel that will do just that. In January, we announced our interim strategy reviewing major resource projects to ensure meaningful consultations with Indigenous people and nearby communities and a clear assessment of potential greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, despite hundreds of thousands of Canadians being out of work, their response is a punishing new carbon tax and holding back approvals of job-creating pipeline projects. Food banks and social services in my constituency are seeing a record number of families looking to them for help. Mr. Speaker, when will this Liberal government stop appointing committees and start showing some leadership by saying no to an economy-killing carbon tax and yes to job-creating pipelines?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member should know that many of the largest employers in Canada have pointed out that putting a price on carbon pollution is not political, it's just good business. It'll give Canada an edge in building a clean growth economy and make Canadian businesses more innovative and more competitive. That's why nearly 30 of the largest Canadian companies have come out strongly and actively in support of price on carbon pollution. They include companies like Suncor, companies like Enbridge, companies like Shell. They know that pricing pollution will bring new jobs and economic growth for middle-class Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, we learned that the Minister of Foreign Affairs blocks exports of weapons to Thailand because of concerns linked to human rights. But in the meantime, the exports of military equipment to Saudi Arabia continues despite its even worse human rights record and its role in the war in Yemen. This government is refusing to create a parliamentary committee to study Canadians' sales of arms abroad. When will we be entitled to transparency on this crucial file? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows, the three parties in this House have committed to respecting these arms sales to Saudi Arabia, but this can be banned if they are used in the wrong way. Now, Mr. Speaker, we use rigor in all cases, and we are also part of the Arms Trade Treaty. We will be evaluating this treaty, and I look forward to this report to ensure more rigor and transparency in arms exports abroad.
The summit of the 22nd United Nations Climate Change Conference begins today in Marrakesh, but there are many worrying signs that the international community may not be able to prevent catastrophic climate change. The Liberals have adopted Stephen Harper's weak emission reduction targets, and now the election of Donald Trump threatens to dismantle the entire Paris Agreement. What will this government do to protect the Paris Agreement? And when will this government commit to strong targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change is at COP22 right now to work constructively with the international community on the task of implementing the agreement that was achieved in Paris. Canada is a strong supporter of that agreement. We have worked tirelessly since that time with provinces and territories to begin the process of developing a plan in Canada, which we will bring forward later this year to ensure that Canada is doing its part to address climate change as part of the global community.
Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, CETA is excellent news for Canadian agriculture. This will open up to us the largest market in the world for our farmers. This government understands the importance of creating new export opportunities while protecting our domestic interests. Before this CETA agreement comes into into force. Can the Minister of Agriculture tell us about how we are keeping our dairy industry competitive while also allowing dairy producers to innovate and augment their efficiency? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank my honourable colleague from Shefford for his question and help. CETA will provide additional exports for agriculture up to $1.5 billion per year. As I indicated, last Thursday I was able to announce on behalf of the government a $350 million package, $250 million to make sure our dairy farmers are innovative, $100 million to make sure our processing sector is on the cutting edge. With these kind of announcements, Mr. Speaker, it shows that this government will make sure that supply management and the dairy industry survive.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Defence Minister insensitively announced on Remembrance Day a 3-year deployment of Canadian troops to a number of unspecified African countries. The Minister said these missions, all of them, have the level of risk where peacekeepers have been hurt. They have been killed. Mr. Speaker, in Mali alone, 106 UN peacekeepers have been killed by terrorists. Why would the Defence Minister choose to announce he is sending our troops to dangerous UN-led African missions on Remembrance Day?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the work that our Canadian forces members have done throughout history, whether it's in United Peacekeeping missions or whether it's in combat missions abroad, whether it's in World War I or World War II. We can be very proud of the work they've done in reducing conflict, and I'll be very proud of the work that our men and women will be doing in support of United Nations operations and in reducing conflict around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, which was Remembrance Day, the Minister confirmed that he was sending Canadian troops for a 3-year deployment to Africa. It is shameful to divert Remembrance Day to make such an announcement, and it shows a lack of respect for our veterans. All we know about this mission is how long it will be and that it will be dangerous. Hundreds of peacekeepers have died to protect peace that doesn't exist. We don't know where our soldiers will be deployed, with whom they're going to work, and what the rules of engagement will be. When will the Liberals finally be transparent with Canadians?
Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as we announced back in August, our government's intention to send up to 600 troops, $450 million over a 3-year period. We can be very proud of their work. We had, on the ceremony that I attended, former members who were proudly wearing their blue berets as well, who have proudly served on previous missions. And we will be sending our members on missions to reduce conflict, and they are very proud of that work. But we'll make sure that they have the robust mandate, robust rules of engagement, and the appropriate equipment for them to carry out their mission. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on Remembrance Day, we should be remembering our veterans and those that have fallen, not announcing new missions. Last month, the Chief of Defence Staff, General Vance, said in the Daily Gleaner newspaper there is no African mission. Then on Remembrance Day, the Defence Minister shamefully announced via the Toronto Star that there was going to be not just one mission, but many African missions. But then the Defence Minister's press secretary said that the minister got, and I quote, got a little bit ahead of where we are as a government. So when it comes to the deployment of Canadian soldiers, who's calling the shots here? Is it the Chief of Defence Staff? Is it the Defence Minister? Or is it the Defence Minister's press secretary?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I'd make it very clear. When it comes to sending our troops into harm's way, I do my due diligence to making sure that we have the right information. By going into theater, whether it's been Iraq, whether it's been into NATO, and whether it's going to be into any type of African mission as well. We announced in August our intention for a 3-year commitment up to $450 million, up to sending 600 troops. And we're going to make sure that we do have the right information before we make an appropriate decision. And then I look forward to sharing this with Canadians as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the 3-year mission is only one of the options on the table, according to the Minister's press secretary concerning the African mission. What are the other options? We don't know. We know nothing about this mission. And yet they're going to send our soldiers into the most dangerous theaters of operations in the world. Could the government be as generous with this House as it is with the media and share with us what the other options on the table are?
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, well, I look forward to sharing all this information with the House and to Canadians. Looking at reducing conflict around the world is extremely important. To do this, we have to do this right. We have to make sure that not just a military option. It takes a whole of government approach looking at diplomacy, development, and we need to make sure that we get the facts. And once we I'll put all the facts together, we will make an appropriate announcement for it. But rest assured, we do need to reduce conflict in the world so we don't have to send our troops into harm's way constantly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, too many victims of sexual assault and sexual harassment in our armed forces have been refused benefits for their PTSD. After having gone through hell, these victims have two very simple requests of this government. First, publish online the services that are available. Second, screen all members of the Canadian Forces and tell them what assistance is available. Will the government listen to these simple requests?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Veterans Affairs.
I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for her concern about Canadian Forces personnel and veterans. And we have work to do. And I'm really glad, I'm pleased to see the addition of It's Just 700, which is a military sexual trauma group, advocacy group, be added to the Minister of Veterans Affairs advisory groups because we need to hear their voice. And that is the first time we are opening that door because there needs to be a dialogue, and we are committed to providing the kind of support that is needed. Thank you.
The Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, the reality of sexual trauma in the military is public knowledge. Canadians know sexual assault is wrong, no matter where it's done and no matter who does it. The women and men who have suffered while serving this country are asking for two simple measures. Post online what help and services are available, screen all exiting Canadian Forces members for post-traumatic stress, and inform them of the available assistance for military sexual trauma. Will this government implement these simple requests?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you to the Honourable Member. Thank you for asking this question, because these are important questions that we all need to share. And right now we have a website that is up and operating. Those lists of services are there. We know that we need to improve our outreach and the list of the availability and accessibility to the website, and that is exactly what we are working on. Thank you.
Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, Charmaine Stick is a courageous band member from the Onion Lake Cree Nation. When she heard about financial trouble with the band, she demanded answers from her leadership. They refused. She went on a 13-day hunger strike. She's now going to court to force the disclosure of salaries, expenses, and financial statements. Does the Indigenous Affairs Minister realize that by failing to enforce the Financial Transparency Act, she is complicit in hiding this information? Why is the minister forcing band members to go to court for basic information?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Everyone, including First Nations governments, want increased transparency and accountability. However, we will only achieve this by working in full partnership with First Nations leadership and organizations. With regards to this specific situation, I've asked my department to look into it and report back to me.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the situation in Onion Lake is about to get worse. Charmaine reports that the leadership stopped development of dozens of new housing units, claiming there was no money. But how would they know? They don't have access to basic information. They haven't seen the books. This paternalistic approach of the minister is deplorable. The community members deserve to be empowered and know what's going on with their money. When will the minister enforce the Transparency Act and provide basic information that all other Canadians enjoy?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I do believe that there is additional information in that case that the member ought to know. I will be happy to have that conversation with the member privately, because I think that it is hugely important that we understand what is put in place is very important in terms of transparency and accountability, and we develop a system that works for all bands.
Order. Order. Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the minister's excuses to shut down the Vegreville Immigration Office don't add up. He claims there's a strong business case, but there was no cost analysis, and that there will be a net gain of jobs, but the hundreds of immediate and spin-off job losses will devastate the town and region. He claims everyone will get a job in Edmonton, but only permanent full-time employees will be covered. More than half won't. Will the minister immediately reverse this edict and keep these rural jobs in Vegreville?
Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, we do share the concerns of the people of Vegreville, but it has to be understood that this government inherited a completely broken immigration system. So our priority has to be to improve service, to reduce processing time, and to spend taxpayers' money wisely. In making the move from Vegreville to Edmonton, we are in fact increasing the total number of jobs in Alberta. And all of the employees in Vegreville, permanent and temporary, will be offered jobs in Edmonton. And this is something, Mr. Speaker, that has to be done for the efficiency of...
The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a member of a Muslim community that has too often in the past not been part of the discussion when it comes to designing a national security framework. We are proud Canadians who want to keep the country we love safe and free. Can the Minister of Public Safety please tell the House how he is ensuring that all communities are involved in the current national security review?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our national security consultations must be open and inclusive, and they are. I have met with Muslim Canadian organizations personally, and my parliamentary secretary met just last week with the South Asian community in the members' riding of Scarborough Centre. That process will continue. Meanwhile, our online consultation has attracted more than 10,000 submissions. Canada is strengthened by its diversity, and it's in partnership with all Canadians that we are working to keep our country safe and equally safeguard the rights and freedoms that we all hold dear.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, against the advice of the Public Service, the Prime Minister lifted the visa requirement for Mexico, and he did this without taking any steps to prevent a new rush of false asylum claims, as Canada experienced before the visa requirement was put in place. Last week, his officials once again warned him that Canada might see a huge spike in false asylum claims, yet he remains committed to a rushed lifting of this requirement. So, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's first priority on this issue should be safeguarding the integrity of Canada's immigration system, but it clearly is not. Why?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, this visa lift was brought about to strengthen our ties on a continental basis. It is well known that with a visa lifted, there will be enhanced tourism traffic coming from Mexico, which will create many jobs and much income in the Canadian economy. We are monitoring the situation, of course, very closely, but this project stands to bring major jobs and benefits to this country.
The member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The previous Liberal government shelved pay equity legislation in 2005, and this Liberal government has further delayed it to late 2018. It's just not good enough. Women have waited 40 years and should not have to wait even longer. We are calling on this government to table proactive federal pay equity legislation by December 2016. The Prime Minister has already indicated that it's 2016 and that gender parity is overdue. So what are they waiting for?
Honourable Minister of Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pay equity is an important issue for this government, and we are taking action. Equal pay for work of equal value is a human right, and we're very proud to be bringing forward pay equity after 12 years of inaction. Pay equity between men and women and the fair treatment of all workers in the workplace, regardless of gender, is critical for creating growth and a thriving middle class. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, in North we have a high need for investment to supply suitable and affordable housing. I would like to ask the Minister about the consultations he's doing on a national housing strategy, and more specifically, if there will be a northern housing strategy.
Well, Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague from the Northwest Territories for his important work on behalf of his constituents. Our national housing strategy will cover the entire housing continuum and consider different regional needs, including the important needs of northern communities. Roundtables and focus groups have been organized in the North to give a strong voice to our northern communities. We are reviewing the important input received from the consultations and will release the highlights on November 22nd, which happens to be National Housing Day.
Well, member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Health Minister has announced that she is going to repeal the right of Canadians to have a say in the location of heroin injection sites. This means law enforcement, families, and different levels of government will no longer be consulted before sites are approved in their very own communities. Now, we're beginning to see a trend, Mr. Speaker. Liberals only consult when they know they're going to get answers that they want. So, Mr. Speaker, the question is this. If the minister is so sure that communities want these sites in their backyard, why won't she guarantee them the right to say no?
Right. Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to protecting the health and safety of all Canadians through evidence-based policy. The evidence is absolutely clear. Harm reduction is an important part of a comprehensive approach to drug control. The Minister of Health has directed the department that there should be no unnecessary barriers for communities who want to open supervised consumption sites, and we've also directed the department to review all options to assist with opioid crisis up to and including amendments to C2. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, we are proud of our cheese producers because these add to the distinctive personalities of our regions. But Canada has negotiated more open markets to the tune of some 18,000 tons of foreign cheeses, most of which will be specialty cheeses. We're going to be inundated with foreign cheese, and our producers are getting peanuts to find something else to sell. Will the government finally realize the importance of cheese producers in Quebec and compensate them appropriately?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and as I indicated a number of times in the House today, that we are going to make sure that our processing sector is innovative and ready to deal with CETA when it comes into power. Not to indicate that CETA it's a very important trade deal. It'll give the agricultural sector up to $1.5 billion in export potential. But we will also make sure that our processors are innovative enough to supply the quality cheeses that will be available for export. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the same government that promised to solve the diet-filtered milk problem is still laughing at us. Once again, they are attacking the heart of the Quebec agriculture industry to the profit of the West. We account for a large percentage of dairy products, in something like 40%. Why are they sacrificing this to free trade? They're allowing Quebec dairy producers to go out of business. Is that a Canadian value?
I indicated a number of times in the House today, and showed it by where we put our money. This government I made an announcement on behalf of the government last Thursday of $350 million to make sure that the dairy farmers and processors were in an innovative situation so they can deal and make sure that the supply management system supplies for many generations. We consulted with the farmers and processors, and now we implemented a program that will make sure the supply management system lasts for a long time in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers might think they're masters of their own destiny, but bad news that the federal government wants to remind us that that's not the case. Now, Ottawa wants to oppose on Mascouche a new recreational aerodrome, which is against Quebec law and has no economic benefits. What about social license? Will the Minister of Transport finally listen to the opposition of the concerned citizens of Mascouche, Terrebonne, the MMC, the UAP, and the National Assembly? Or will Ottawa once again decide in our stead unilaterally? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
For the safety and security of our transportation network are the Minister of Transport's priorities. Last March, wanting to ensure that the implementation of a new aerodrome at Mascouche was secure and in the public interest, the Minister issued a ministerial order to prevent the implementation of such an aerodrome until a public consultation was conducted by the aerodrome proponent. Following its evaluation, Transport Canada was satisfied with the conclusions contained in the proponent's report of the consultation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Ivica Dačić, First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Serbia. This will conclude question period for today. I encourage members to take their conversations into the hallways, into the lobbies. Order. Perhaps the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the President of the Treasury Board, thank you very much. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents, l'honorable ministre du Développement.
The Honourable Member for International Development and La Francophonie. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and subject to Standing Order 32.2, I have the honour to table in both official languages the treaty entitled United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification in Countries Affected by Drought and or Desertification, particularly in Africa. It was signed in Paris on October 14th, 2016. An explanatory note accompanies the treaty.
Contrary to Standing Order 36(8), I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's response to 55